As I was coming here this morning, my wife shouted after me, "What are you going to talk about today?" I said, "I'm going to ask everybody to leave the room, park their egos at the door, and come back." My wife said, "How can you do that? You can't get your ego through the door." My wife does this to me all the time. I took her on a speech. I was speaking on leadership in Melbourne, and as I was driving her home, I asked her, "In Melbourne, my dear, how many great leaders do you think there are?" She said, "One less than you think." Also, my friend was ill, and he was in the 5th floor of the university hospital. And I went there, I went into the ground floor, and there was only one woman there. She was dressed in green, a beautiful blonde. And when the door shut, she turned to me and said, "You're a nice-looking guy." I said, "Gee, thanks, man, you made my day." And when we went to floor 1, the door opened, a couple came in. And she persisted. She said, "People just say it, but I mean it. You're a nice-looking guy." And the couple turned, looked at me. The woman rolled her eyes and jabbed the guy's ribs. And then on the 3rd floor, she left. To my great relief, she left. And then I saw a big green sign with 2 words, which explained everything. The 2 words were psychiatric ward. Okay, when your CEO invited me here, I said, "Look, you guys got very good speakers. Can you give me some tips on how I can be one of the better speakers?" And your CEO said, "No way, no how, no sir. I can't do that for you. But I can only give you one guarantee." I said, "What is your guarantee?" He said, "I can guarantee you I have provided an audience which simply can't tell the difference." You see, my first 3 stories was to say to you, you must be humble. You must be willing to consider the other guy better than you are. And that is called the open mode. And that's the only way you can learn. And that is how we get a learning organization. And then I gave you a test. And you laugh at yourself. You got an A++. And that's what I'm going to do throughout. I'm going to play games with you. Let's look at the next slide. Can we get the next? Oh, I must press a button or something. How do I get the next slide? Oh, here it is. As you can see, most of us, we worry about a financial focus. What is our profit, turnover? You know, I was staying with a guy doing a PhD in accounting. You know, I was in university. I said, "What is your homework for tonight?" He said, "I have to write a 50-page paper on what is an asset." I said, "A 50-page paper on a lousy item like an asset?" I said, "Name an asset." He said, "Inventory." I said, "Inventory? You know, you got to pay for the inventory. You got to store the inventory. You got to insure the inventory. You got to pay interest on the money you borrow, and it drains your profits. How can you call it an asset?" He said, "Key, I am doing a PhD in accounting. You are not." Now, so financial focus was a big deal. Then we have the process focus, whether we have a hub or whether we do not. And then we have a customer focus. All these things are wonderful, but not now. Today, the bottom line under your bottom line is your focus on the renewal and development focus. Are your people being renewed? Are they being developed? And do you have a graph? You see, if you go to Bank of America, and the places like that, they have everything on a computer. If you work for McKinsey Consulting, every 3 months, they have a printout of all the ideas you have added to their knowledge pool. And if yours aren't good enough, they'll fire you. So Fujitsu has hired a consulting firm from Europe to take care of what they call the knowledge pool. If you use the word knowledge pool, it has been copyrighted by Fujitsu. So the whole world today is becoming very aware that the human focus, where you renew and develop everyone in your organization, that is how you prevent yourself from being extinct. Okay? Now, for example, do you measure the value added of your employees? Okay? In order to do that, you must manage knowledge. Let's look at the next slide. How do you manage knowledge? Since I see that you guys like a lot of wine, I used the wine analogy. At the bottom of wine is grapes. Grapes is data. But if you've got too much data, you're dead, okay? But if you step on the grapes and turn it into mush, there's information. And then when you squash the mush, you get the juice. So from data, information, knowledge. Data means 60 watt, okay? Information, 60 kilometers per hour. Now that is information. And information that is actionable becomes knowledge. 60 kilometers per hour. And so wipe off 5, okay? Because then you have got about some space when you break. Google, Yahoo, and all those guys in the computers today are just up to here. And Google is worth millions. If you will spend some time with your people to understand epiphany, insight, and wisdom, you will be making money in the billions and the trillions. And the thing I can't understand is that people aren't fooling around with these upper levels, okay? So what is wisdom? Wisdom is when you say, wipe off 5 and save a life, okay? And what is insight? 2 women brought a baby to King Solomon, and they both claimed the baby was theirs. They both had a child each at night, but one died, but they're now claiming one baby. So King Solomon says, give me a knife. I want to cut the baby in half, and they can have half each. Because he knew that the mother will give up the baby rather than see the baby being cut. So he displayed insight. And epiphany is when you start talking like the philosophers of our society talks. I'll give you an example of a philosopher. John Rawls of Harvard University, he said, all social primary goods like liberty, opportunity, income, and wealth, and the basis of self-respect are to be distributed equally unless an unequal distribution of any or all of these goods is to the advantage of the least favored. So if you spend time talking like that amongst your people, then you're mucking about with epiphany. Epiphany is also, I remember one day my wife said to me, darling, I'd like you to come and watch our first baby being born. I said, no worries, I've read all the books. So I took her to Lemaire's classes, okay? And we learned first level, second level, third level, fourth level breathing. So one morning at 4 o'clock, my wife says, darling, my water has broken. I said, call the bloody plumber tomorrow. My father never told me anything about babies. And so she explained to me what the matter was, and it sent me into a state of shock, and she drove me to the hospital. In the hospital, I could see, bright lights, a doctor and 4 young doctors having a free look. And then when the baby came out, they never told me babies were born blue. So I whispered in her ear, darling, you just gave birth to a Smurf. And so when the baby came out, I saw umbilical cords, I saw blood, I heard screaming. They were all from me. When we went home, I realized that things weren't going right for me. So I said to her, look, I went and rented a movie called 10, you see. I said, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate me? She said, don't tease me, I'm terrible at fractions. But I had an epiphany. When I saw the baby coming out with all the blood and guts and all the mess, my epiphany is, what is the worth of a baby? Too many of us in our corporate life want things to be ordered, want things to be clean, sanitized, But life is never like that. Sometimes it is the mistakes. My son is in doing biotechnology, and the husband and wife, who is a team in the lab, it was a mistake. They had to go somewhere and didn't pay attention to the experiment that won them huge rewards. So learn to catch mistakes. I'm now going to move into a second gear where I will tell you real stories and bizarre stories. And your job is to discern which is which. Our world moves at the speed of thought, which means that bizarre stories can take on an air of verisimilitude. And if we want to, we can make it happen, okay?